Welcome back to Goshen Prepping. I'm glad you're here, and today's video is very important. You want to stay through this because when it comes to your house is your castle. People say all the time, anything that happens at all, I'm going to bug out and leave, and you're going to end up in the woods eating bark from a tree, and it's not going to be happy days for you. No, you want to stay in your house. Granted, if your house is on fire or something like that, and you need to leave, sure. But this video is dedicated to talking about your castle. But the problem is, it's not a castle. It's a home. It's not made out of these giant bricks or cement, however they made castles back in the day, giant blocks and rocks. No, it's drywall and possibly bricks, and you don't have a moat around it. Point being is this. If anybody is motivated to get in your house, they will get in your house. That's always your first thing you need to understand. So today's video is talking about, well, you know what? At least slowing them down or giving you the advantage so that way you and your family are more well protected. But the more you think about your house can easily be penetrated, the better off you are. That's what I talk about like all the time. If you're out in the woods camping, a tent, it keeps water off your head. That's pretty much, maybe keeps a little bit of heat in there, but that's all it is. If a bear's coming or a marauder's coming, anything's coming, is going to get in that tent like it's nothing. In fact, often since that tent obstructs your view, it gives you a false sense of security and it makes you more vulnerable. Same thing with your house. So it's important we see it this way. Don't think it as in like, oh, this is my castle. It's not a castle. It's your home. And hopefully your home is going to be ready for anything that does come. And that's what today's video is. So let's jump into it. First, layers are always more important than single layers, I guess if you want to call it that. So, I mean, sure, I've got a door. And that door is going to have security on it. And you're going to have, hopefully, you have some seriously steel reinforced locks on there, some deadbolts, etc. And again, I always say that if somebody's going to get through, they're going to get through, even if you have a steel door. But getting through, you want to make it as slow as possible and have yourself ready. But multiple layers. So don't simply just have outer walls, but an inner location you go to too. Our family calls it the Alamo. If we ever have any situation where somebody breaks in, my kids know if I yell Alamo, we all go to this central location, which is more easily defendable. But think about this, and this is where I'm getting at. These layers are good. You want to have multiple zones they have to get through, but also can make it equally bad because if you do have like an internal room you go into and then the house does catch fire, are you going to know? Are you going to see what's going on outside? Do you have an escape plan? Well, we're going to show some things to do with that, but obviously having awareness is the most important part. So again, don't think of, oh, I got my steel door. Steel doors don't usually have windows. So seeing what's on the outside of that wall is actually just as important as trying to keep people outside as well. It's not going to stop everything. You have to know what's coming through. Exterior lighting comes into play with this. Now, grid down, an exterior light is going to be like a beacon telling people to come to your house. Think about that. But you want to have these lights regardless, and maybe have it so you can turn them on and off. In other words, if it's just like a solar-powered, motion-activated light, that could be problematic. But if you do have it connected to like a solar generator or something so you can turn it on when you want it turned on, especially the effect of shock and awe, they're walking to your house, everything's pitch black. We got to be quiet because we're going to break in because the grid's down. Then boom, suddenly this light comes on. It's not motion activated because that could have actually set off by a squirrel or a cat. And then later, they would have seen it a long ways off. So they'll be ready for it. So you want to always have this surprise type stuff. Motion lights are great, a great deterrence. But remember, always have all light, by the way, pointed outward, away from the house. So that way you see them and it's going to obstruct their view seeing you. With that in mind, obviously, you're not going to have it so you don't have blackout curtains. You don't want that light getting out. Because again, even the most smallest crack of light during a situation when the grid's down is going to be like, hey guys, over here, we've got power, we've got people, we've got food, and they will be coming to your door to try to break down that steel reinforced door, which they will. Sound discipline comes into play too. Being relatively quiet inside the house, no time for a party, don't be yelling and screaming and stomping and listen to the latest music and stuff. But I mean, that's easy. But outside, sure, a generator is not going to work. You're going to easily be setting, generators are so loud anyway, they're ridiculous. But it's always going to attract people as well. But always want to have it so, especially during the nighttime, everything's very quiet. You want to make it so because that's what they do, right? Marauders are going to be coming around more at night than anything else because they're more stealthy that way, harder to see. But with that in mind, again, they're going to get in. And when they do, you're going to have to worry about medical. And I can't stress this enough, especially being a physician. You need to be ready for medical. And ready for medical, we're not talking about the little tiny boo-boo kits, but we're talking about major trauma, compression, Israeli bandages, etc. Which, I have it in my binder talking about everything you would need for that. If you don't know the binder, there's a link below. I've put all my notes in there. In fact, today's video, by the way, I'm going to have that as an add-on. So if you have the binder, go to the website link I gave you so you can download this latest add-on, which is chapter 20, and add it to your checklist of things. But you want to have all this stuff ready and very quickly accessible too. In fact, if we're talking about a crap hits the fan situation, my plan is to take one of our bathrooms and turn that into a complete trauma center. That is our medical sick bay. It has everything you need in there. Be able to catch blood in the tub, etc. You don't want blood laying on the floor and you have to mop it up. But it's relatively easy to sterilize the area for the fact that most of it is usually like tile, that type of thing. And it's a one central location where we can all go to and do it. I mean, in the meantime, people can still go in there and use the bathroom. But if we need to, we can turn it into a medical bay, which is cool because I've got tubs and tubs and tubs and tubs full of medical supplies. So many medical supplies that have accumulated throughout the years by simply just going to yard sales or finding stuff on clearance, and I add it to my giant tubs. But like I said, though, the binder tells you the things you're going to want to have, and it's not Band-Aids. Band-Aids they're nice for cosmetic reasons. Oh, look, I don't want to show blood on my skin, so this nice, they even have like skin-colored ones now. Band-Aids, so that way you don't see it there. And with that, fire risk mitigation. I find that this is probably the least sexy of all the stuff when it comes to prepping. People don't want to talk about fire mitigation. I mean, when you see something like the new fire blankets coming out, they're not really that new now, but it's the latest trend. People are like, fire blanket. But you can't go wrong by simply just having fire extinguishers. Lots of them in every single room. In the kitchen, a few of them. If you have a wood stove or fireplace, a few of them. Not to mention have the chimney stick, which you can put out the wood stove too. Just look it up on Amazon, or I'll link it if you want to, I don't care. But having all those everywhere, because think about this. If a fire does develop inside or out, in some type of crap hits the fan, the fire department's not coming. We live so far out in the country, the fire department's not coming anyway. I mean, they're going to, but my house could easily be completely engulfed by the time they got here. So it's our job to be proactive and put out that fire quickly before it totally envelops anything. That's what we have to do. So be ready for that too. Now, I put on there, I've always talked about flashlights. People are like funny. It's just people's mindset. It kind of like blows me away. I do talk about flashlights a lot. I have a ridiculous amount of flashlights. And I have lots of lanterns too, gas lanterns, so I have a lot of stuff that I can make it so it illuminates my house. But people are like, man, you have too many flashlights. You don't live where we live, out in the middle of nowhere, where going without power is a regular occurrence. And I'll tell you right now, there's a lot of people on this channel who completely live off the grid, and they don't depend on the electric company turning on their light switch. If you say you have too many flashlights talking to me, you depend on your light switch way too much. Because the way we lose power here, you're always going to have light sources, because even with a flashlight, you turn it on, is not the same as having all the lights on. There's a reason like lights in your house are everywhere and displaying the whole, lighting up the whole ceiling, because it gives you that whole ambiance effect. Not ambiance, that's pretty, but that whole overall effect to make it so everything's lit up. Trying to work, even with just a couple flashlights, it's terrible. It's not easy. You have to put a lot more work into it. So of course I have a lot of flashlights. Why wouldn't you have a lot of flashlights? Because you're a novice. You need to have a ridiculous number of flashlights. Now, lanterns too and stuff, obviously too. Now, I had somebody also say, oh, I love a lot of flashlights on there, but I have lots and lots and lots of candles. Yeah, me too. Same thing. People will have like a romantic dinner, burn the candle down this much, and then be like, what do we do with them? They don't throw them away. So they throw them in a shoebox, and they'll sell them for like $1 at a yard sale. Tons of candles. I have so many candles. But I will tell you, I prefer electric lights more than anything else, because candles are a fire hazard. So if we're talking about fire risks, candles are a serious fire risk. Keep that in mind. Flashlights will always work better. And real quick, I always have to throw this in. People are like, oh, not during an EMP. Your flashlight's not going to fry during an EMP. A small device that's not plugged in the wall is not going to fry during an EMP. Total wives' tale. So yes, I have lots and lots of flashlights. Yeah, I've got some candles too, quite a few candles. But if you don't, then obviously you don't live where we live. How about that? Where we're always going out of power. It's just what's going on. All right, next up, you need to have a communication plan for you and your family. Phones will fail. I capitalize the whole word and bold it, will. They will fail. Don't think for a second you depend on cell phones. You cannot depend on cell phones. Cell phone during a grid down, the cell phone towers have backups to be able to keep them going for a while. But even during those small times they are available, it won't be available to you. It's only going to be for emergency services, which are going to be overrun. Sure, have your phone so you can look at pictures, but that's all you're going to be getting out of it. Phones will fail. Don't even think that you can call someone. And sure, you could have backup radios, walkie-talkie, ham radios, which I highly recommend you do that, just at the very least. But I want you to understand, you need to come up with a plan where you don't need any communications. Hey, if we need to leave, if our house burns down, on this paper map, this is where we're going. And by the way, having that paper map with just one little X on there where you're going is probably not the smartest either. Because if somebody gets to you, they're going to be like, oh, I know exactly where they're going for their whole party. So either have lots of different codes on there so they don't know where to go to, or just have it memorized where the location points are. But the communication is a key for this. And you want to be able to communicate with your group however you simply do it. I don't connect with a lot of the different groups up here in Michigan. Some of them get pretty extreme, by the way. But it wasn't even simply that. There's a big group up here, and they were like, so they even like gave themselves ranks and stuff, which was like, sorry to be a little facetious, that was cute. They have little ranks as far as their group goes. And they, for their sergeant for their area, as they called it, they're in charge of making sure everybody had communication. So at least that's good, you know. I'm not really knocking that, but I was like, oh, good. So how are you doing if there's something happens to communication? Cell phone. It's like, seriously? Your idea is using a cell phone? Yeah, we'll just call each other in case something happens. I'm like, are you serious? Even for the fact that if you call yourself some type of one of these like deep cover groups, you know what I'm saying? I don't want to get into like even talking about this, if you know what I mean. But don't you know that you can listen to cell phones? Don't you know that's monitored? Don't you, even if they do work, don't do it. That's not the smartest thing. Why do you think they used codes throughout the last forever? Even in modern times, military will do on open air channels. They can actually scramble stuff, but you can hear them talking on these huge raves, sending out the burst and saying, you know, codes. And we don't know what the codes are, but the people listening half around the world do. Even the military does it that way. So cell phones is not the way. And by the way, when we talk about walkie-talkies, don't use those cell phone walkie-talkies. They're fun to use anywhere, but this cell phone walkie-talkie connects to the cell towers, and I can talk to anybody beep, 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 around the world on it. That's awesome. Until those cell towers go down. Then it's useless. So anyways, keep that in mind. Vehicle readiness. I always talk about this. Make sure you always have your gas tank topped off. If you can just tell my wife this, would be all set. She loves getting it down to like a quarter of a tank. I'm a half a tank, if not more, person in my car. And so I'll hop in her car. She has a nice car. I like her Toyota. We'll get in and be like, why is the gas tank so low? Oh, I just haven't had time to get gas. No, you make the time and you get gas. Always having a certain amount in there. Now, beyond that, having basic supplies for your car. Lots and lots of things you should always keep in your car. I'm not going to go in detail in this video, but I lived in Colorado and I had a 4x4 truck and I always had minimum gear, which has always, I'm not going to say it saved my life, but it could have. But it's made it so when I've been trapped in snow for 24 hours straight in my truck, I at least had stuff to eat and do to keep warm until I got out. It's a way of life in Colorado, you know what I'm saying? Here in Michigan, we get a lot of snow too, but we're a lot closer. But I still keep all that gear in there. You don't know what's going to happen. Basic supplies and always keeping gas in there. Then lastly, visibility. This is the most important thing because I can't stress enough, even from a martial arts student, situational awareness is key. Always seeing what's going on. And this goes full circle. Just like when we go back to being in the tent camping, it keeps the rain off your head, the snow off your head. I like that. Keeps it a little bit warm in there. I like that too. Gives you a place to keep the gear that's dry. I love it. But you are cutting yourself off from seeing everything outside. If there's a bear or marauder or anything outside, that tent's not going to stop them. Nor will your house. So even if you have windows, you may want to consider the 3M film on your windows. I mean, granted, you're going to stop people from coming in, but it may stop you from getting out too. So you always want to have lots of exits. Know your exits where they're going out to. Now, obviously, you know the exits of your house. People always say, oh, when I go into a store, I look at all the exits. Yeah, the exits are well labeled. Your house, you already know. But I always want to make sure you guys have a backup exit wherever that is. But visibility is key. You want to be able to see outside without them seeing inside. You coming in and shutting the blackout curtains and sitting over in the corner saying, I hope they don't come in, is asking to die. That's not going to work because they will get in. Knowing intelligence as far as what's happening out there is vitally important. So you need to find ways to make it so you can look outside. You know, in the military, if we had blackout type stuff, we would make it so we'd actually have a second layer of blackout, so that way we could actually put our face through it and see outside without letting any of the light we'd have outside. And by the way, we would have red lights on, because with red lights, if you don't know it, your eyes don't have to adjust. You've been in a situation before where it's super bright in here, you go outside, you're like, I can't see anything. If you have all red lights, your eyes don't have to adjust like that. They'll work just fine, which is kind of cool. But obviously you want to have a look of, hey, there's nothing happening in this house, but you have to be able to look outside too. And with that in mind, by the way, sleeping positions, lone wolf preppers, to each their own, if that's what you want to do. I like people. I'm an extrovert. I think that's what it comes down to, by the way, isn't simply just lone wolf, but they just like being alone. That's not this guy. I put it in the comments below. Do you like people around? I love people. I hate to be alone. My whole family will tell you. I'm getting work done sometimes alone. That's fine. But I hate being alone. So in a prepping situation, if I literally lost my whole family, I'd be like, why even bother? I'd probably go into helping other people is what I'd probably do. So here's the key. If you're a lone wolf prepper, how do you know if somebody comes up to your house at night while you're sound asleep? And hopefully you have a really good system to be able to counteract that. Hopefully you do. Because if not, guess what? For us who have communities, we can set rotations and watches. And that is like the smartest way to go if you can possibly do that. With that in mind, everybody has a role. All family has a role, from the littlest kid to the oldest person. And maybe you have that relative nearby who's like, I don't prep, I'm just coming to your house. And you may or may not say no. That's totally up to you. But if they come in, this ain't no free ride. You're going to be holding your weight, helping with whatever skill you're good with. But at the very least, looking to see what's outside. And you need to put kids into responsibilities too, because when scary times happen, there's nothing better than actually working towards something so you keep your mind off what's happening there, and playing games and stuff too. So the first while will be, or first 30 seconds of something like this will be very quick and catastrophic. So always have those things ready in a flash. But obviously it's long-term we look at too. And your house is your fortress, but it's not a castle. And you have to know how to protect it. So again, I'll put a link for the binder below if you want to pick up the binder. But for those of you who bought it, the add-on, go to that one website part where I gave it to you. You can actually download the add-on to put into this chapter too. But I always appreciate you guys. And anything I missed, I'll of course put it in the comments below so everybody can benefit from this too. Thanks for watching, everybody. We'll see you next time.